Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. So I am in Florida and it is 31 degrees right now at my house. So if I'm cold this morning, I know that there's a good chance that you, whoever and wherever you are colder. But I don't know about you. I'm snuggled up and hopefully my internet doesn't give me too much trouble while I'm on because I've already gotten a message that it's being cranky. So if you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom. I am a nana. I am a girlfriend. I am a grad school student studying for my Master's of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. I am a runner and I'm waiting until it's not 31 degrees anymore to get my morning run in, which will be after this. Hopefully the temperature will come up a little bit as the sun starts to come up. And I am a wellness advocate. I have spent a lifetime battling with depression and anxiety and found that it has been very, very helpful for me when people have shared some of their own tips once I was actually ready to hear them. And it was on my heart for a long time to start this. We are now over a year of doing Wellness Wednesday, and it has been fabulous to not only share some of my experiences, but to also learn from you. So if you're here, let me know you're here. If it's too cold and you're not out of bed yet, I totally get it. And if you don't see this till afterwards, drop a comment or tell me hashtag replay in the comments so that I know you saw it. Also, Wellness Wednesday, the whole idea is to share. So I love to learn. If you have topics that you'd like to see me cover in a future Wellness Wednesday, please feel free to message me, drop a comment. As long as we stay away pretty much from politics and negativity, that's how I like it, because Wellness Wednesday is meant to be a sharing time that also hopefully leaves some of us with some inspiration. I know a lot of times I leave my Wellness Wednesday with inspiration from you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the Thanksgiving episode from last week and that you had, more importantly, a fantastic Thanksgiving. I decided a few weeks ago that I wanted to do a movie series. There's a church in Illinois that I used to follow. They had an app. I don't know if they still do. I probably need to check that out. That would do a 4-part movie series the month of December that did biblical messages that could be found in Christmas movies. And I was thinking about that. And I thought, well, why not wellness messages? Because oftentimes they're not that different, right? Ironically, when my grandson was here last Wednesday, because I had him the day before Thanksgiving, he chose the Grinch for his movie time. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I have never seen any of the Grinch movies, cartoon or live action, all the way from start. So I sat down. I was like, okay, that's a great choice because the Grinch was on my list for this movie series. And I sat down ready to take notes, and notes I did take. I actually learned a lot from this movie and was quite enamored with the messages, as I interpreted them anyway. And yes, there were lots of tears. So here are the messages that I got from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Good morning, Aunt Lois. How are you today? So here's the messages that I got from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Number 1, Christmas is very commercialized. Now, we probably knew that already, but it really kind of hits home when you see all the packages being purchased and carried around. Good morning, Danielle. In a town full of supposedly happy people. But I feel like the exaggeration there was intentional to kind of remind us of, and if you've ever been in Walmart or in a grocery store or shopping anywhere on Christmas Eve, let's face it, it doesn't look that far off from Whoville, right? At the beginning of the movie. And I feel like it was almost kind of spot on. So first thing that hit me was, wow, this is really a true picture of how commercialized Christmas has become. And for some people, that's okay, depending on what your beliefs are. But it really is supposed to be more than just driving ourselves nuts, burying ourselves in gifts in the store while we're trying to get out for Christmas, right? I also saw immediately that Christmas shouldn't be a competition. When Cindy Lou's mom, who I think, I have her name here somewhere. It's not coming to me at the moment. Betty Lou. When Cindy Lou's mom, Betty Lou Who, and Martha May are basically competing over who's going to have the best Christmas lights display. One of the first things I thought of was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which may be one of the movies we talk about this month. And then the other thing that I thought was, wow, you know, when I would decorate for Christmas, I would decorate to, and I say when I would, like I'm never going to do it again, but I decorate because it makes me feel happy. It brings me joy. And if I have a nice light display or a few things out front where people can see them, then hopefully it brings them some joy too. But when it gets to the point where you're competing and you have to have special tools so that you can get more lights up faster and things like that, then you're kind of taking the joy out of it. And if that's the case, you might have lost the reason for the season, right? So I kind of thought that humorous. And again, another great exaggeration of how things really do happen sometimes at Christmas while people compete in neighborhoods for the best Christmas display. And we kind of forget why we're doing it. So why are we doing it? We're hopeful to have those beautiful Christmas lights. I know during the pandemic, it was actually recommended to put them up early because it made people feel happier. And because, again, like I said, if the display brings other people joy, then that's a huge plus too. Good morning, Miss Paula. So those were the first two things. So let's talk about the Grinch, right? So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the Grinch has a lot of issues. He's not just grumpy. I went into this movie thinking that the Grinch was just a grumpy guy, right? I don't remember if I read the story when I was a kid, or if the story was read to me. I honestly don't. But so I went into this thinking that the Grinch is just a really grumpy guy. But he had a lot of issues, and a lot of them were grounded in childhood trauma, which ironically is one of the 5 common root causes of anxiety and depression. So here's what I saw, maybe because I've been here. And so when I was watching the Grinch, I kind of was looking at him from a different perspective than I might have been if I was just anybody sitting down to watch a Christmas movie. Social anxiety. There was definitely some social anxiety there. Cindy Lou started some great things happening for the Grinch because she felt that he needed to be loved and appreciated. But he, no matter what good things were attached with what was happening, he was laser focused on the bad and too laser focused on the bad to appreciate. Other things that were kind of a tip off to the social anxiety were that he couldn't find anything to wear and that he tried on several different outfits and that he was very indecisive right up until his last minute going out the door. I'm going to go. I'm not going to go. I'm going to go. I'm not going to go. Which put me in mind of that time I've talked about where I was pacing furiously in 3 layers of clothing, trying to figure out how to get out of a bonfire. So there was definitely some social anxiety going on there, which would totally be expected for somebody that's been so isolated, right? For so long. Isolation. Isolation leads to long-term fight or flight stress signaling, which we clearly saw. The Grinch, from the minute that the teenagers in the mountain, more so Cindy Lou, he was clearly, even though he was kind of trying to aggravate the Who's and kind of make them miserable, a lot of times we do that. If we're miserable, we kind of reflect that on others, right? But the isolation was a very, very clear sign. And again, that is often one of the root causes of anxiety and depression. And boy, was the depression there. We could see that too. I mean, there was a very clear manifestation of it. He's lonely. He's in the house. He's talking to himself, ruminating over things that happened when he was a child, even though it's clearly been years. So there was definitely some major indicators there that the Grinch was suffering from some very severe anxiety and depression, more than likely as a result of his childhood trauma. The other thing I noticed that's common, again, when we have anxiety or depression or we've been isolated for a while, is we have a tendency to lash out to the people closest to us. And poor Max the dog, he was the closest one the Grinch had, without a doubt. Now, I want to plant this little seed here that as much as Max the dog may have seemed to have been mistreated a little by the Grinch, Max the dog hung around. And I paid attention to that, and I noticed that because animals have a unique ability to see good or bad in people. And even though Max growled at him a few times and bit his butt to get him to help save Cindy Lou from the sorter, Max was still hanging around and doing things to help push the Grinch or to stop the Grinch from doing stupid stuff. So that to me was a clear signal right from the get-go. Maybe this guy wasn't so bad, right? So Another thing immediately in the first part of the movie was that I learned that peer pressure is still a thing, y'all. It's still a thing. In the beginning when, well, not in the beginning of the movie, but when they go back, good morning, Miss Dawn, when they go back to the Grinch's childhood, we see a situation where the Grinch is being ridiculed and made fun of and laughed at. And Martha May, who may have had a little bit of a crush on him even then, did not stand up for him. She kind of folded to the peer pressure. Everybody else was laughing and making fun. Good morning, Miss Kayla. And she didn't want to be left out. She didn't want to be ridiculed also. So you could see very clearly in her physical, in her nonverbal cues that she felt bad for him. But she did not speak up. And then there's the teenagers on the mountain who were picking on each other, and you know, the girls were trying to tell the boys not to mess with the Grinch's house. And then, there was a little bit of ridiculing going on there and some clear signs of peer pressure. And then all of a sudden, when the boys didn't want to, after picking on the girls, when the boys all of a sudden were faced with the Grinch's door and didn't want to do anything, then the girls turned around and reversed that peer pressure and put it on them to go. I hope I'm not cutting out too bad. I keep getting notices about my Wi-Fi. It's being a weirdo. I think I said this last week and I haven't done it yet. I'm going to have to reset the modem. So hopefully it's not cutting anything important out. So peer pressure is still a thing. And that leads to what? A lot of times peer pressure, simple forms of peer pressure, kind of turn into bullying. And there was a clear situation of bullying painted in this movie from when the Grinch was little to even as he was an adult. If that's what you call an adult Grinch, I think it is. So a lot of times children who are bullies, they grow up to be adults who are bullies if nobody ever stands up to them and puts them in their place. It's important to stand up to those who are being bullied. Now, we just touched on this a little bit with Martha May in terms of peer pressure, but one kind of sometimes leads to the other. She didn't stand up for the Grinch on that fateful day, even though she clearly felt bad for him. And then the mayor, okay? So the mayor was clearly the perpetrator of a lot of the bullying that the Grinch experienced when they were kids. And now he's the mayor. And it was very clear very quickly that once the Grinch was brought front and center by Cindy Lou Who, that the mayor felt the need to start poking again. And it seems like he definitely was doing things on purpose when the Grinch was brought into town for his award by doing things that he knew probably were going to trigger the Grinch, right? The gift of the Christmas shave. Now, we don't have a pre-Grinch Whoville story, so is that truly what the gift was? Or is that something that was done just to aggravate the Grinch, knowing the history? And then, of course, knowing that the Grinch had a huge crush on Martha May, the mayor made a public proposal right in front of the Grinch, almost like he was trying to steal the spotlight back from the Grinch because he didn't like the attention that was happening there. And also like he was poking and trying to aggravate the Grinch, knowing that these were things that were going to kind of trigger him. So the mayor's a bully. That's the bottom line. The mayor is a bully. And it's important to stand up to those bullies. And ironically, I think I said, yes, he was taunting him. That's exactly right, Dawn. And I think I saw something where you said in a comment yesterday about having that discussion with grandkids maybe on the way home from the movies. There is, I can't remember the link right now. I know I've talked about it before when I did the 3-part bullying series back towards the beginning of the year. There is a website that has some excellent resources in terms of teaching your child how to stand up for children who are being bullied. Bullying is a very serious thing. When I was a kid, it had a profound effect on me, and it was nowhere near as nasty as it can be nowadays. It is a very profound thing. And not only do children who are bullies often become adults that are bullies, and yes, that's a thing. If you didn't see the 3-part bullying series, I do actually talk about adult bullies. And if you'd like, I can tag you in those videos. Might take me a few minutes to find them because it's been a while, but I can tag you in those videos. So that was very strange. I just had a very strange, it looked like a little bubble that came up with a thumbs up out of my mouth. In any case, I don't know if y'all saw that or if I'm just seeing things this morning, but you know, it is cold outside. So what do you want from me? So it's very important to teach our kids to stand up for themselves in a non-physical manner when possible, and to stand up for others who are being picked on. Oftentimes also kids that are bullied can become bullies as well, almost as a reverse overcompensation type situation. And we really don't want that. But there's a lot of it going on, and it's so much nastier in the current times than it was when I was growing up, or even really in this movie. But it is a thing, and it does have a profound long-term effect on the child that's experiencing it. So that was definitely a theme of the movie, was the bullying, and more than likely, based on the movie, a very clear source of the Grinch's childhood trauma, because that's what actually made him run away and go live by himself for years. Good morning, Victoria. And then the only question I had there is that if his adoptive parents, or I guess whoever the Who stork brought him to, why didn't they go after him? Why didn't somebody go after him? That was unavailable facts that we didn't have in the movie. So clearly, not only was he bullied and ridiculed to the point where he ran, where his fight or flight response kicked in, but nobody ever went after him that we know of to try to remedy the situation. So yes, bullying is starting at younger ages now too, Dawn, although I was pretty young when it started with me, probably kindergarten, first grade. So I earlier now, or if it's just that we're hearing so much more about it, unfortunately. And because there's so much new technology involved in the bullying process now, also in the awareness process. So absolutely, peer pressure, bullying, these are things we need to watch. These are things we need to teach or talk to our kids about. They're things we need to be aware of as adults, if we are being bullied in the adult world, which is a lot more common than you might think. Okay, so next message that I picked up almost immediately and throughout the movie is we should listen to our kids. Since we're talking about bullying, right? It seems like a perfect segue. Cindy Lou Who was wise beyond her years. She was, in the very, very beginning, she's buried in a pile of gifts, and she's asking her father, Dad, doesn't this seem like a bit much? So very clearly, she's picking up on something that nobody else is picking up on, that Christmas is maybe a little out of control, right? Another quote of hers, and I didn't have any notes regarding what, but it's same idea, where she said, everyone is kerbobbled. And that's true. We look around at Whoville and everybody is kerbobbled, even though they're happy and they're singing and they're doing all the things that indicate Christmas joy. They are running all over the place like crazy, trying to put up Christmas lights and buy Christmas presents. And they are probably just making themselves nuts, all in the name of this is what it's about. Yes, always be willing to hear them out, Danielle. That's exactly right. Kids have a unique, in my opinion, they have a unique perspective. They are young and they see things in a way that necessarily hasn't been changed by what they've been told or what they've been taught just yet. What they've been told and what they've been taught might be starting to filter in there, but they still see things very plainly in terms of fair, not fair, very black and white. And they pick up on a lot of things that we just really don't give them credit for. So clearly Cindy Lou is not totally impressed with the fanfare of the gifts of Christmas. She knows something is missing, but maybe she's not quite sure in the beginning what it is. But they do notice more than we give them credit for, and paying attention to. So it's important to not just listen to them, what they have to say, but pay attention to their nonverbal cues. Sometimes there's things that'll let you know that your child's being bullied, even if they don't say that they are. There's a reason why, there have been jokes for years, kind of like cats. You buy all these gifts and toys for kids, but you put a pot and a wooden spoon in front of them, and they're going to have more fun with that or more fun with the box than they are with the gifts. So even then, even with all the pomp and circumstance and shiny wrapping paper and all of that, these kids feel something bigger. And Cindy Lou Who was proof of that. And then furthermore, another message that I got from the Grinch was that a good person is a good person, even if they're prickly on the outside. So the Grinch, even though he ate glass as a toddler and did weird things as a toddler and looked different, and you kind of almost got the impression in the beginning that as a toddler, he was painted to be evil, even though nothing he was really doing was necessarily hurting anybody else. But he made this beautiful gift for Martha May. Now, did it look like anything that anybody else was doing? No. But it was beautiful to him, and he put his heart and soul into it. He saved Cindy Lou from the sorter. Yes, Max had to bite him in the butt to get his attention. Sometimes we need to be bit in the butt to get our attention too, right? But he saved Cindy Lou from the sorter. And then I thought it was hilarious how she thanked him, and then he went out of his way to pretend and act like he didn't do it to save her or to be kind, and went so far as to even wrap her as a gift to prove that he was still the Grinch, to kind of uphold this image that he had, right? He also gave Christmas back when he realized, first of all, that Cindy Lou was in danger because she was on top of this giant sleigh full of gifts that was about to go down the mountain. He ultimately gave Christmas back, which means, somebody is just, we make a lot of assumptions that people are just inherently not good based on things they do or things they say. And the truth of the matter is if they are inherently not good, they're not going to do things like what the Grinch did, as far as taking the steps to right what, just reeling from all of the triggering and the anxiety and the depression and the worry. He still did the right thing. He saved Cindy Lou. He gave Christmas back. And then at the end of the movie, we actually see him hosting Christmas dinner for the Who's in his cave, and just being a genuine, fantastic Christmas host. So he went from one extreme to the other. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Starting here, everybody deserves kindness, no matter how different they appear or act. That was a huge theme of the movie. Cindy Lou really just embodied that theme, that it didn't matter. Nobody needed to be alone on Christmas. So it put me in mind of a neighbor that I had several years ago who I rarely ever saw her come out of her house. And many times when she did, she would just be going to check the mail, or she would be outside working on her plants. She had a lot of plants surrounding her house. And everybody in the neighborhood said she was mean. She never talked to anybody. You know the story. Everybody's had one sooner or later, a neighbor or someone in the neighborhood that just nobody talked to, everybody stayed away from because they were grumpy or grinchy or whatever. And I had said good morning to her a couple of times when I had seen her outside, and she never answered, and I wasn't actually sure. I actually spoke more quietly than I usually do in those moments because I didn't want to startle her. But good morning, Miss Trisha. But she either didn't hear me or she didn't respond. And I was like, well, I've tried a couple of times. She must be like everybody else says. So there was another neighbor that was friends with her and usually took her to her hair appointments and couldn't do it that week. So that person approached me, knowing that I was frequently home on Fridays because I was working part-time at that time, and asked me if there was any way that I could take this neighbor to the hair appointment, because this neighbor asking was not able to do it that week and really didn't want to let her down. So I said, you know what? I think maybe this is an opportunity that God's giving me to get to know this person better. And I said, sure, I will do it. What time? So at that time, I pulled into her driveway, even though it was right next door, and she was coming out the door, and she had this big, bright smile, and she said, thank you so much for helping me with this. This is the only time I get out of the house. So it didn't take long to figure out that this woman was entirely different than what I'd ever heard about. So a lot of times, they just need a gesture. Isolated, they are full of anxiety, depression, and they just don't even try to reach out to anybody anymore. They have walls up like the Grinch did, and it's just easier to keep those walls up and keep people out than risk getting hurt. So everyone deserves kindness, no matter how different they look or act. The Grinch deserves kindness. He did not get that because he looked different as a child, and those childhood events carried with him for years and years and years. But everyone deserves kindness. And we have to remember, this goes along with that quote that you never know what's going on with the person standing next to you. It's easy to make assumptions, but you never know what's going on, what they're experiencing on the inside. And finally, at the end, Cindy Lou Who's dad says, I'm glad he took our presents. I'm going to try not to get teary here because I can feel it coming on. I'm glad he took our presents because you can't hurt Christmas, Mr. Mayor, because it isn't about the gifts or the contests or the fancy lights, which is what I've been trying to say this whole time. That's what Cindy Lou has been trying to tell everyone and me. I don't need anything for Christmas when I have all of this right here, my family. It wasn't quite verbatim, but close. And that really is what it's all about. Whatever your beliefs are, Christmas is a time of joy and appreciation and gratitude. So I thought I was just impressed and overwhelmed with the number of amazing positive messages that came from this movie. And if you've seen it before, you may have already known all of those were there. But I can tell you that when you sit down and you watch a movie looking from the perspective of trying to find the messages, sometimes you see it completely differently. So remember these final lessons from The Grinch That Stole Christmas. Number one, anxiety, depression, and repressed anger are not a life sentence. They are something that can be, that you can go into recovery from. Now, anxiety and depression, I will never tell you that it's something that you can completely recover from, but they are something that can be brought into a recovery state and managed if you are aware of what's going on and seek help if you need it. Number two, ironically, this whole movie kind of embodied a quote that you may or may not be familiar with, or you may know the quote, but you may not realize it was Dr. Seuss that wrote the quote. Now, it wasn't heard in this movie, but I feel like this movie indeed embodied this quote, which was, to the world, you may be one person. Here we go. But to one person, you may be the world. A tiny nothing to you. It may seem like no big deal. Even something as simple as holding the door or taking your neighbor to get their hair done. It may seem like not a big deal. But as we see in The Grinch, oh goodness, y'all, I'm sorry. The ripple effects might be enormous. Just absolutely enormous. And we've talked about this before in terms of paying for people behind you in the grocery line, holding a door, sending a kind note. There are so many examples here. Cindy Lou was an ongoing example of how simply treating someone the way they should be treated, regardless necessarily of how they prickle or kind of spit back, for lack of a better way to put it. It's important, and the ripple effects are enormous, even if you don't see those right away. Sometimes we do things like that with an expectation of seeing some kind of a return on investment when we do that. And that's not the case here. Cindy Lou did, in fact, get to see the return on investment. But I'm pretty sure at the point that the Grinch saved her from the sorter, that she knew that she was right about him and that he was a good person. And that even if nothing else had come to fruition, she would have still walked away knowing that she saw a spark of good in the Grinch and that there was more to him than met the eye or what everybody talked about. Thank you, Victoria. You guys are going to make me cry. So again, let me just repeat that quote one more time because I know we've all heard it. I don't know how many of us. I don't think I realized it was a quote from Dr. Seuss. There's so many quotes out there. But to the world, you may be one person. To one person, you may be the world. Just remember the ripple effects and that a tiny little act of grace and kindness can just do amazing things. And lastly, no matter what your personal beliefs are, if you celebrate Christmas, the focus should be on the joy, the family, and of course, as always, the gratitude, right? Not the gifts, not the lights, not the competition, but the joy. Like I said, whatever your beliefs are. I just told a story in the Thanksgiving episode about the Philippines and how they celebrate Christmas because it gives them hope and it gives them joy. They don't celebrate Thanksgiving because it's an American holiday. So just remember, the point of Christmas is generally joy in almost any realm of belief. It's the most generally joy and gratitude. And y'all know I love the message of gratitude. So that's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have suggestions about other movies I can talk about in the next few weeks, I have 3 more. I'm still undecided about the next one. But I hope you found this helpful. Hope you found some inspiration in it. And if you haven't seen The Grinch from this light, then maybe sit down and watch it again and think about the messages I talked about and see how quickly you pick up on them, where maybe you didn't before. Because a lot of times it's easy. We sit down, we watch a live action movie. Jim Carrey is amazing. There's nobody that could have played that part better, in my opinion. So we're watching the faces and we're watching the comedy and we're looking at the hair on the Who's and all the things that make this movie fabulous just as a visual appearance. But if you get a chance and you haven't seen those messages in The Grinch, sit down and try to watch it from that perspective, because I think it will change your day like it did mine. So again, hope you found this helpful. Hope you enjoyed it. Another movie next week. We're going to do 4 weeks of this. If you did find it helpful or inspiring, please share. Because can't we all always use a little bit of extra inspiration, but especially over the Christmas holiday. So like I said, next week we'll talk about another movie. If you have suggestions, go for it. And in the meantime, I hope you have a fabulous Wednesday. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, be well. Bye.